Hello, everybody. Welcome to Blog Talk Radio's The Sales Professional Network, TSPN, Blog Talk Radio's first and only show dedicated to the sales professional. Regardless of the industry, if you're in the sales business, this channel is just for you. We focus on the topics that are relevant to all industries, and the commonality is that we as in sales professionals face similar challenges each and every day. And TSPN, the Sales Professional Network, was designed to create a forum where we could discuss these challenges and come up with solutions and best practices to meet those challenges. Tonight's show has been brought to you by AH Square and Beyond Consulting. That's AH2 and Beyond.com, delivering on our clients' expectations in sales strategies, marketing, as well as sales training. AH Square and Beyond. Increasing your competency means increasing your sales results. Tonight's show is an abbreviated show, kind of giving my afterthoughts of last night's show, which I thought just went fantastic. It was a show based on, is there such a thing as a sales slump? And I thought I'd do this show just to kind of give you my, 2 cents on the whole subject matter. And I typically have my shows on Tuesdays really geared towards the guests that I have on the show. And I don't really spend a lot of time on my shows on Tuesday night really giving my opinion. That's why I created my Afterthought show the night after on Wednesday night. For those of you who listened to last night's show and you come back to kind of get my 2 cents, I certainly say thank you for coming back and hearing what I have to say in terms of my thoughts on the subject. And those of you who are just listening into this show and did not listen to last night's show, it is in the archive function in Blog Talk Radio, so you can go back in and view that show in its entirety. And if you'd like to call in to kind of talk about what I'm talking about with regards to the subject of my afterthoughts on this show, the number to call in is 347-838-9979. Press number 1 on your keypad. That'll get you in the switchboard, and I'll get to you right away. I want to just start out first by thanking Robert Loggins, Jr. for calling in to last night's show and being our guest. He was fantastic. Everything that I threw his way, even some curveballs I tried to throw Robert, he addressed them in a very polished and professional way. And I thought his insight on some of the things we talked about with regards to this whole idea of sales professionals being in a slump, I thought was just fantastic. And I just want to, again, thank Robert for being on the show last night and for quite frankly, carrying it. He just did a fantastic job. You know, when I look at the whole subject, and I'll kind of reword the title of the show. I named the show last night, Is There Such a Thing as a Sales Slump? And I think if you were to ask me, such as if I was the person answering that question myself, I'm not the type of person who would answer a question by saying yes and no, because I think that's kind of the easy way out. I understand it's the best pragmatic approach to a question like that, but to me it's kind of the easy way out. And so I'll just go ahead and say, I don't think so. I don't think there is such a thing as a sales slump. I understand, what a sales slump is, and I get the cliche of it, and I understand that. But the whole idea of getting into a sales slump, to me, comes across as something that's negative, that's enduring. And I think, just kind of looking back and being realistic, we all face times in our sales careers and quite frankly in life where, things don't go our way and things happen to us by surprise and things that happen to us we have no control over. And I think oftentimes how we create that into a quote-unquote proverbial sales slump is that we spend a lot of our mental energy and a lot of our time on that particular negative situation. And again, don't get me wrong. When you're in the sales business, there are peaks and valleys to sales. It's just like in life. There are good times in sales, and then there are challenging times in sales. And I think the best sales professionals and just the overall successful people, they know how to not spend a lot of time dwelling on the bad times versus ensuring that they dwell more so on the development piece of the problem or the challenging piece or the opportunities of the challenges that take place. And they spend a lot of time in that area. And I'm that kind of person. I certainly have had the downs in my sales career, earlier on in my sales career, and even when I was in a sales leadership type of role. Of course, I experienced times that didn't go my way and sales weren't looking good. but I did the best I could to get out of that situation as soon as I could. And I think that's one of the things we have to look at. When you're talking about a sales slump, it could take us by surprise, but the key is how do you avoid it, or how do you minimize a sales slump or the downtime in sales? And then most importantly, how do you get out of it quickly? And especially if you're a sales professional, I know you have the sales manager or the VP of sales on your back about getting the numbers and churning and burning, and I understand that. And the goal is getting out of a situation that's negative or getting out of the doldrums of a pocket of sales quickly and learning how to do that. And I think a large part of that is getting yourself mentally focused and setting yourself up successfully to get out of a situation like that. I'm big on preparation. And so when you talk about how do you avoid a sales slump or how do you avoid things that you have no control over, I'm not sure you can avoid those things. I mean, things just happen. It's the old proverbial SHIT happens, and it does in sales as well as life. It's just that when you're in that situation, not necessarily how do you make the best of it, because I don't know how you can make the best of a bad situation, but how can you turn that, I guess, unfortunate situation or sales slump into an opportunity? And I think most sales professionals and your most successful people in life look at challenges and obstacles not as, oh, man, I can't believe I'm going through this again. Am I the only one on earth that has these problems? No. They don't look at their issues or their problems that way. They look at their problems and their challenges as, great, this is just another opportunity to succeed, and at the end of the day, this is just an opportunity for me to develop my skill sets a little bit more. And I think having that fresh approach or taking, I guess, a vivid look at a challenge that way, I think that's how you'll get out of a proverbial sales slump quickly. But spending time in that valley is probably not the best way to go. And I thought I'd kind of answer some of the questions, or I guess take a crack at some of the questions I asked Robert last night that I thought would be apropos to kind of give you my thoughts on this whole idea of is there such a thing as a sales slump. One of the questions I asked Robert last night is, what's the best way to deal with the ups and downs in the sales business? And when I put this question together, I thought, the best thing to say is, you're never too high and you're never too low. If you have the victories, celebrate the victories. But no, hey, there's another challenge right around the corner. But that doesn't mean you don't spend time celebrating the victories. And when you get down, that doesn't mean that you stay down for a long period of time. That's what's called a slump. And I go back to my thoughts. I think you can avoid that. I really do, folks. I think you can avoid the sales slump and being in that situation for an enduring amount of time. But it's celebrating the victories and learning from the victories. We've always been taught in life, and nothing is different in sales, that you go back and you learn from your mistakes. I mean, we were taught that from growing up as children. If your mother told you not to put your hand on the hot stove and you did it anyway, your mother says, what did you learn from it? Well, at that point, it's punitive because you've already hurt your hand. And I understand you have to learn not to put your hand back on the hot stove if it's hot. But how often do we go back and visit or review the good times and take pieces out of the victories that we had? Very few, because we feel as though, hey, we've been to the pinnacle, we've done it, we were victorious in this situation, let's move on. And I'm the one who says, I don't know, I understand we can move on, but I'm not sure we can totally avoid what took place, because maybe it's something that we did very positively that caused that positive reaction or the good sales results. Maybe it's bits and pieces we can take from that and grab it and put it in our holster and use it for a later date. So you hold on to that. Yes, you do learn from the valleys and you do learn from the things you don't want to repeat. I certainly understand that. But we don't spend a lot of time really learning from our victories. So when I look at the question, what's the best way to deal with the ups and downs? Again, you don't get too high and you don't get too low, but celebrate, folks, the victory. And, as a VP of sales and in my earlier life, I always try to celebrate the victories for my individual sales contributors if they won a deal, if they won a big account, or if they drove business or they were number one out of my sales organization for that year. We celebrate it. We celebrate those victories, but then I'd have the folks kind of step back and say, okay, tell me what you did good. Because we can sit here and we can sit here and celebrate and just do all great things and just be joyful. But I want you to kind of analytically kind of step back and kind of walk me through, what did you do good? And how can we bottle that up and use it possibly for a later date? And then 2, what did you not do so good that we can learn from? Because we don't, again, I want to make sure I clarify this. We don't want to avoid the things we didn't do well because we don't want to repeat those things, right? I mean, that just makes sense. You don't want to repeat bad things over and over again. But it's a happy balance. And one of the things before Robert and I had our show last night, one of the things I mentioned to him is there has to be a balance in your attitude and your behavior in terms of how do you face life and how do you face the sales profession. There's got to be a balance between, as I mentioned, not getting too high and not getting too low. So that would probably be the best way I would be able to, myself personally, deal with the ups and downs in the sales business. I kind of covered this a second ago, but the next question is, are there ways to avoid valleys in the sales business? I'm not sure there's ways that you could actually avoid something that you can't control happening, because things do happen that you don't expect. But the one thing that I know is true and blue, and it's worked for me and folks that I've spoken with, I've consulted with, that I know work, is unparalleled preparation. Unparalleled preparation. Most people plan for the plan A, right? You go into a call or you go into an account or you go into a business with a set objective. Very, very successful people plan for a B, they plan for a C, they plan for a D. They have plans all the way down to Z. They have a plan B, they have a plan C, so that if plan A doesn't work, they can go to their plan B. If plan B doesn't work, they can go to their plan C. That's just being phenomenally prepared. So when I look at that question, are there ways to avoid valleys? I'm not sure there are ways to avoid valleys, but when they do occur, you're prepared for them, and you know how to deal with them. And take the experiences that you had previously in dealing with the valleys and bring them over to the new issue, to the new challenge that you have to go through. You know, right now, many corporations and folks, sales professionals alike, are setting up their objectives and their planning for 2012. You know, we're pretty much at the end of 2011, and everybody's kind of reflecting on what their 2011 looked like from an up standpoint, from even from a down standpoint, and they're trying to put together a plan that's going to help them be successful in 2012. And this is a perfect topic to kind of look at and kind of put together your plan for 2012 when you're looking at, we did these things in 2011 that probably weren't the best way to go and didn't help us drive our business. Let's avoid those, and let's put those in the plan as something that we don't want to do in 2012. And then, like I said earlier, let's go back and look at those things that we did very well and maybe take some bits and pieces of that and maybe add that to our plan for 2012. Now, before anybody kind of jumps on that, I certainly understand 2012 may look totally different than 2011. I get that. In the sales business, things change at the click of a light bulb. I mean, things change automatically and very quickly in the sales business. What you did today when you were making that call or calling on that customer or that account, I guarantee it's probably going to change tomorrow. I get that. Next year, the dynamics of your business is going to change. But there's still things you can learn from this previous year and kind of add over into the following year, to 2012. But preparation is the key, folks. Preparation, and prepare yourself like there's nobody's business. That's the best way I know of is as far as avoiding a valley. Now, again, I go back. Nobody can avoid an unforeseen circumstance that could occur. But the best way to deal with it once it comes and to get out of it quickly, out of this proverbial slump quickly, is to have unparalleled preparation. Have a plan A, have a plan B, have a plan C, and have a plan D. That's what your business plan is all about, and that's what your preparation is all about. The next question came up, how are some people consistently successful in sales and others are not? Well, everything I pretty much just said. Just from my experience, and I've dealt with successful sales professionals, and I've had a little bit of success in my career as a sales professional as well as a sales leader. And it's preparation, and it's never being too high and it's never being too low, but you always have a plan. I think that's key, that you always have a plan that you can exercise at any given moment, regardless of what's being thrown your way. If it's an obstacle, if it's a challenge, or even if it's something that looks like a great opportunity, you have a plan, and you have an A, B, C, and D plan. And most successful people, they always have something in their arsenal to go after that business. They never get to a point, and this is just my experience, folks. This is just my experience from very successful people, is that when a curveball is thrown their way, they can hit it somehow. Or, guess what? They can maybe take a ball or a strike, but I guarantee you they won't get a strike three because they'll always have a B and C in their arsenal to kind of deal with that challenge. So I would say probably that's the best way that I can think of someone being consistently, and that's the key word, consistently successful in the sales business. Are there legitimate reasons why someone is in a sales slump? And I mentioned this earlier. Yes, they are. And I know I had mentioned earlier that I don't believe in the sales slump, but I kind of twist it around. I do think there are legitimate reasons why someone may be going through a situation that's probably not favorable for them. And again, it could be a change in business structure in your territory. You know, key customers could leave out of your territory. The recession, that was a big one, and we talked about that last night. You know, 2007 on to the present has been a major challenge, and folks didn't see this coming years ago. And there's folks that currently are being very successful dealing within this recession. And what are they doing to overcome a lot of the obstacles that the recession has caused all of us? But to go back to the question, there are legitimate reasons why. You know, someone may be in a bad situation, or not favorable. I shouldn't say bad situation, but not favorable situation from a sales standpoint. I believe that, and I'm not the person that, you know, I'm not somebody who would say, no, there's never no time you should be down, or never no time where sales should be down. You know, that's asinine. That doesn't make any sense, and that's not reality. You know, there are times that things happen to you, as I mentioned over and over again, that you have no control over. So there are legitimate reasons why someone may be in a sales slump, but it just depends on how long they're in that sales slump is what matters. And the next question is, if you are experiencing a rough patch in sales, what are the best ways to get out of that patch quickly? Well, we talked about that. You know, it's the preparation. And I know it seems like I'm being redundant, but these things have to be marinated over and over again. It's having a plan and getting out of it quickly. You know, when people get in a situation that's not favorable, we spend a lot of time just, you know, pontificating on why we're in that situation, when it should be how do you prepare to get out of that situation. And again, I go back to how do you prepare to get out of it quickly. And lastly, any advice I would give a salesperson, whether they're new or they're tenured, that are maybe going through some tough times, or let's face it, they might have had a tough 2011. They didn't have probably the most successful year this year. You know, you reflect back on what took place this year, and you say, hey, look, I can't repeat what took place last year in business. Quite frankly, can't repeat what took place last year going into 2012. But I would say the best thing to do in 2012, if you didn't do this in 2011, is prepare like no other. Never get too up and never get too down in the sales business, because I will tell you, if you get too up and you hit a valley, it'll kill you in sales. It really will. If you've ever seen and I'll just throw that out there, and I'm digressing a little bit, but if you've ever seen the movie Glengarry Glen Ross, that movie itself I think is a great sales movie, and I'll tell you how it's never a good idea to get too up, and it's never a good idea to get too down. I mean, sales can be devastating for someone who has that type of temperament, to get too up and get too down. So that would be one piece of advice I would give somebody that's new in the sales business, and even those folks that have been around in the sales business, I think they understand that you can never get too up and never get too down. Have a balance so that if you do hit a creek in your sales or your accounts, or things are just not going your way, be balanced in your approach. You know, what got you in that situation? How do you get out? And what plans, A, B, C, D, what type of plans can you put in place to ensure that you don't hit that valley again? I would certainly provide that advice for a new salesperson as well as a tenured salesperson. And then lastly, always, 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 and I'll say always one more time, remain humble. If you're not humble and you don't exercise humility, sales and the sales profession will certainly force you to be that way, believe you me. And for those of you, as I mentioned, who've been in sales for any period of time, understand that the whole sales business can humble you. But I think it's a good attribute to have is to be humble. And when I say be humble, again, be balanced. Never get too high and never get too low. But something that we talked about, Robert and I, last night, always ask for help. If you've got a mentor or if you've got a boss, a VP of sales or a director of sales, don't be afraid to ask for help. If you get into a situation where it's tough to get out of, don't be afraid to ask for help. Asking for help is a sign of strength. It's not a sign of weakness. Everybody needs help at some point in their lives, and that's just a life lesson. Everyone can't do it all alone. There's people that have tried, and I guarantee you the percentages of success in doing that are probably not that good. So always ask for help, and that's part of just being humble, and that's just part of showing humility. So we're getting down to the last few minutes of my afterthought show, and I hope everyone got something out of that. As I mentioned, I don't provide a lot of that detailed opinion of what I think on my shows on Tuesday, and that's why I like to have kind of the afterthought show on Wednesday. And I hope you do have the opportunity, if you didn't review or listen to last night's show, that you go back and listen to last night's show. I thought it was great. And again, Robert Loggins Jr., who was my guest speaker, did a phenomenal job on the show. And then, if you want to come back and re-listen to my afterthought show, it might give you a better perspective in terms of my opinion on the subject, is there such a thing as a sales slump. So with that, I want to do farewell to everyone. And again, remind everybody that this show, the Afterthought Show, as well as the Sales Professional Network, TSPN, has been brought to you by AH Squared and Beyond Consulting. That's AH2 and Beyond.com. If you're going to look for us on our website, it's AH2, as in number 2, and Beyond.com. We deliver beyond our clients' expectations, sales strategies, marketing, as well as we do a very good job in sales training. So that's AH Square and Beyond. Increasing your competency means increasing your sales results, and especially if you're going into 2012 with a different game plan in place. Certainly if you have issues and challenges or obstacles that you want to improve on in sales training, please look us up. We've got some great strategies in training. I've been in the training environment myself for over 11 years, so I'm very versed as far as putting together a sales training department as well as a sales training organization, and can provide you some input regarding that, as well as I have a background and, of course, a partner that specializes in marketing, where we have this what's called a marketing funnel that we presented to a few of our clients that really enjoy that way of looking at their business. So again, it's AH2 and Beyond.com. We call ourselves AH Square and Beyond.com. Look us up if you need help or strategies in sales strategies, marketing, as well as sales training, especially if you're getting ready for the upcoming 2012 year. Thank you, everyone, for coming back. If you are coming back, or if you're coming to the channel and you're listening to my Afterthoughts show tonight, welcome back, or thank you for being here. If you like what you heard tonight, and if you've gone back and listened to previous shows and you want to follow us, please click the follow button, and you'll get updates through your email of next shows and topics. And oh, by the way, before I forget, our next show, which is next Tuesday, and our shows are every Tuesday at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, our next show is going to be Sales Managers Give the Excuse, No Time to Develop My People. And we're going to embark on this whole idea of, should sales managers and VP of sales spend just a little bit more time in developing their people? And I know it's about getting the numbers, but developing your people is extremely important as well. And we're going to talk about that next week, and we're going to bring an expert on who is an expert in people development. So I hope you can listen to next week's show too as well. So with that, everybody have a great rest of your evening, and thank you so much for visiting the Sales Professional Network, TSPN. Good night, everybody.